I thought I had everything figured out when I got my biggest bonus yet after 3 years of working my tail off in marketing here in Denver. 28 years old, finally making good money, and I wanted to do something special for my parents. Something we had dreamed about since I was little. A 10-day trip to Spain, Barcelona, Madrid, Seville, just the three of us. I was so excited to finally give back to them after everything they had done for me. I had saved $15,000 over 3 years living frugally, and this felt like the perfect way to show my appreciation. But sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Truok kitoi, bat jau kau chuyen, nai hai cho toi biet ban jang hetuthan fo nao va nu bantung ko trang hiem tuong tu voi gia jin hein han like va subscribe je chung ta kung chia se. Boy vin hungi saira tiep theo jan thai joy huan toan kach toin hin han ve long trung than trong gia jin. Let me give you some background first. My name is Chloe, and I have been working as a marketing manager at a tech company here in Denver for the past 3 years. I graduated college on a scholarship and have been completely self-sufficient since I turned 18. I rent my own apartment, bought my own car, and managed to save $15,000 through careful budgeting and working overtime whenever possible. My relationship with my parents has always been loving, but I noticed early on that I was never quite the priority that my younger sister was. My sister Amber is 25 and has been unemployed for 8 months now. She quit her graphic design job because, in her words, she had not found work that suited her passion yet. She still lives at home with our parents in Colorado Springs, about an hour drive from Denver. Mom and Dad have been supporting her financially, giving her spending money each month and covering all her expenses. They always defended her choices, saying she just needed time to find herself. This difference in treatment was not new. Throughout our lives, I was always the responsible one, the one who could handle things on my own. When we were younger, Amber got the bigger college fund, the help with her car down payment, and even money for her wedding that never happened. The explanation was always the same. Chloe is strong, Chloe can take care of herself. Chloe does not need our help as much. So when I got that bonus, my first thought was to do something meaningful for my parents. I called them on a Sunday evening, practically bursting with excitement. Mom answered the phone, and I could hear Dad in the background watching television. "Mom, Dad, I have something incredible to tell you both," I said, unable to contain my enthusiasm. "I want to take you both to Spain with me. Barcelona, Madrid, Seville. 10 days of everything we have ever dreamed about." The silence on the other end lasted longer than I expected. Then Mom spoke up, her voice filled with what sounded like genuine emotion. "Oh, sweetheart, that sounds absolutely wonderful. Your father and I have never been to Europe. This would be the most amazing gift anyone has ever given us." Dad got on the phone then, and I could hear the excitement in his voice too. "Chloe, honey, this is incredible. Spain has always been on our bucket list. You are such a thoughtful daughter." I felt so happy in that moment. This was exactly the reaction I had hoped for. I started explaining my research, the hotels I had looked at in Barcelona, the flamenco shows in Seville, the museums in Madrid. But then came the question that would change everything. "What about Amber?" Mom asked, and something in her tone made my stomach drop. "Will she be able to come too?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay positive. "Mom, I have budgeted for 3 people. This is meant to be special time for us. Just the 3 of us. I have been planning this as a gift specifically for you and Dad." Another long silence. This time it felt heavy, uncomfortable. "Let us think about it, honey," Mom finally said. "This is such a big trip. We need to discuss it, and we will call you back." I hung up feeling confused and a little hurt. Think about it. I was offering them a free trip to Europe, something they had always wanted to do. What was there to think about? I tried to push the feeling aside, telling myself that maybe they just needed time to process such a big surprise. Maybe they were worried about taking time off work, or maybe they wanted to make sure the timing worked with their schedules. That week, I threw myself into research. I spent hours looking at hotels in Barcelona, reading reviews of restaurants, mapping out our itinerary. I found a beautiful hotel near the Gothic Quarter, made a list of must-see museums, and even started looking at flamenco shows in Seville. I was so excited about sharing this experience with them, but they did not call back. After 3 days, I called them. "Oh, hi, honey," Mom said, sounding slightly flustered. "We are still discussing the trip. There are just some logistics we need to work out." Logistics. It was a free trip. What logistics could there possibly be? "Is everything okay?" I asked. "You both seemed so excited when I first called." "We are excited, sweetheart. We just need a little more time to figure everything out. We will call you soon." By Friday, I still had not heard from them. I called again, and this time Dad answered. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, but his voice sounded strained. "We are still talking about the Spain trip. It is a lot to take in, you know. Dad, is there something you are not telling me? This should be simple. Do you want to go to Spain with me or not?" "Of course we want to go, Chloe. It is just complicated right now. Amber is going through a tough time and we need to figure some things out." Amber. There it was again. Everything always came back to Amber and her needs. I decided to drive down to Colorado Springs that weekend to talk to them face to face. Something was obviously going on, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. As I pulled into their neighborhood, I ran into Mrs. Thompson, their next-door neighbor who had known our family for years. "Chloe," she said brightly, "how wonderful to see you. Your sister mentioned the Europe trip yesterday when she was getting the mail. How exciting for her. She seemed so thrilled about Barcelona." My blood ran cold. Amber mentioned the trip. Oh yes, she was practically glowing. Said it was going to be the adventure of a lifetime. You girls are so lucky to have such generous parents. I thanked Mrs. Thompson and walked toward the house, my mind racing. How did Amber know about the trip? I had not told her anything about it. The only way she could know was if Mom and Dad had told her, which meant they had been discussing it as a family decision, rather than the gift I had intended it to be. I found Amber in her room, sprawled across her bed with her laptop open, looking at what appeared to be travel websites. She glanced up when I knocked on her doorframe. "Oh, hey, Chloe," she said casually. "What brings you by?" "I heard you know about the Spain trip," I said, trying to keep my voice level. She did not even have the grace to look embarrassed. "Yeah, Mom and Dad told me about it. Sounds amazing. I have always wanted to see Barcelona." The way she said it made my stomach turn. She was talking about it like it was already decided, like she was already going. "Amber, this was supposed to be a gift for Mom and Dad. From me. I saved up for this trip specifically to take them." She shrugged, closing her laptop. "I know, but maybe I could go instead of you. I really need this break, Chloe. I have been dealing with unemployment stress for months, and this could be exactly what I need to get back on track." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. Instead of me, this was my idea, my money, my gift to our parents. "But you see them way less than I do," she said, sitting up on her bed. "I am here with them every single day. I take care of them. You just visit on weekends. I take care of them by being self-sufficient and successful. I work 60 hours a week so I can afford to do nice things for them." "That is your choice," Amber said dismissively. "No one asked you to work that much. Besides, you can travel anytime you want. You have money. This might be my only chance to see Europe." The entitlement in her voice was staggering. She was talking about my hard-earned money, my carefully planned gift, like it was something she deserved more than I did. Before I could respond, Mom called from downstairs. "Chloe, honey, can you come down here? Your father and I want to talk to you." I walked downstairs with a sinking feeling in my stomach. Mom and Dad were sitting on the couch in the living room looking uncomfortable. They had clearly been discussing this before I arrived. "Sit down, sweetheart," Mom said, patting the chair across from them. I sat down, already knowing that whatever they were about to say was going to hurt. "Honey, we have been thinking a lot about this trip," Dad began, "and we think it would be better if Amber went with us instead of you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I had expected them to ask if Amber could come too, maybe suggest I pay for a fourth person. But replacing me, I never saw that coming. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, though my voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Amber really needs this trip, Chloe." Mom said, her voice taking on the same protective tone she had used for Amber our entire lives. She has been struggling so much with unemployment. She is depressed, she barely leaves the house. This trip could be exactly what she needs to get her life back on track. But this was my gift to you, I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. I saved for months for this. I planned everything. We know and we appreciate it so much, Dad said. But you are successful, honey. You can travel whenever you want. You take business trips, you have money for vacations. But Amber, this might be her only chance to see Europe. I felt like I was in some kind of alternate reality. My only chance, I work my butt off to afford things like this, and you want me to pay for Amber to take my place on my own gift trip. It is not like that, Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. We just think it would help her more than it would help you. You do not need this trip the way she does. Dad leaned forward and I could see he was trying to find a way to make this sound reasonable. What if we compromised? What if you still paid for the trip but Amber went with us? You could plan another trip for just the three of us later. I could not believe what I was hearing. They wanted me to pay for my sister to take my vacation while I stayed home. They wanted me to fund her European adventure because she was too unmotivated to get a job and pay for her own trip. You want me to pay for her vacation while I stay home, I repeated just to make sure I was understanding correctly. We want you to help your sister, Mom said. That is what families do. We help each other when someone is struggling. But what about helping me? What about appreciating the sacrifice I am making to give you this trip? You are not sacrificing anything, Amber said, appearing in the doorway. She had obviously been listening to our conversation. You make good money. This trip is not going to hurt you financially. The casual way she dismissed my hard work, my savings, my gift made something snap inside me. Just because I work hard and make money does not mean I owe you a vacation, Amber. No one said you owe me anything, she replied, but Mom and Dad think it would be better for everyone if I went instead. I looked around at my family, these people I loved, and had wanted to do something special for, and realized that none of them understood what they were asking of me. They saw my success not as something to be proud of, but as something that meant I no longer needed their consideration or respect. I need to think about this, I said, standing up. There is not much to think about, Dad said. We have made our decision. Amber is going with us. Those words echoed in my head as I drove home that night. They had made their decision. Not we should discuss this, not let us find a compromise, but we have made our decision. About my money, my trip, my gift. And I was not part of that decision-making process at all. The following week was torture. Every time my phone rang, I hoped it would be my parents calling to apologize, to say they had reconsidered, to acknowledge how unfair they were being. But the call that came was worse than I could have imagined. Hi, honey, Mom said when I answered. We wanted to let you know that everything is all set for the trip. Amber found some great deals and booked everything. My stomach dropped. She booked everything with what money? Well, we gave her your credit card information from when you bought our Christmas gifts last year. We thought you would understand. I nearly dropped the phone. You gave her my credit card information. Just for the trip booking, sweetheart. We knew you wanted this trip to happen, and Amber was so excited to help with the planning. I hung up and immediately logged into my bank account. $4,200. Gone. Flights to Barcelona, hotel reservations, even restaurant deposits. All charged to my credit card without my permission for a trip I was not even going on. With shaking hands, I called the airline. The customer service representative confirmed my worst fears. Yes, I see the reservation, she said. 3 passengers, Patricia, David, and Amber. The tickets are non-refundable and the trip is scheduled for next month. Amber had not just taken my place on the trip, she had literally replaced my name on the reservation with hers. She had used my money to book her dream vacation and erased me from it completely. I drove to my parents' house immediately, not caring that it was 10 o'clock at night. I used my key to let myself in and found Amber in the living room, surrounded by travel guides and printed itineraries. Oh, hey, thanks for funding the trip, she said cheerfully when she saw me, as if she was thanking me for lending her a sweater. I found some amazing restaurants in Barcelona, and I upgraded us to better hotel rooms. I figured since you were paying anyway, we might as well make it really special. You stole my trip, I said, my voice shaking with anger. You used my credit card without permission. I did not steal anything, she said, her tone becoming defensive. Mom and Dad gave me permission to book the trip. They gave me your card information. It is not my fault you are being dramatic about money. Dramatic about money? I worked 60-hour weeks to save for this trip. And now 3 people get to enjoy it instead of just you, she said, turning back to her travel guides. I think that is actually better. More people get to be happy. Mom and Dad appeared in their bathrobes, drawn by our raised voices. What is going on? Dad asked. I want to know how you thought it was okay to give Amber my credit card information without asking me, I said, trying to keep my voice level. We knew you wanted this trip to happen, Mom said, and Amber was so excited to help plan everything. Help plan everything? She replaced me on my own trip. Chloe, you are being selfish, Dad said, his voice taking on an edge. This is just money to you, but for Amber this trip could change her whole outlook on life. Just money. Those words cut deeper than anything else they had said. 3 years of saving, of working overtime, of carefully budgeting every expense, and they thought it was just money to me. Just money, I repeated. Do you have any idea what I sacrificed to save for this trip? The dinner's out, I skipped the clothes, I did not buy the weekends I worked instead of relaxing. You chose to work that much, Amber said from the couch. No one forced you to. I worked that much so I could afford to do nice things for the people I love. But apparently that just makes me the family ATM. Do not be dramatic, Mom said. No one thinks of you that way. Then explain to me how you thought it was okay to spend my money without asking me. Explain to me how you decided I should pay for Amber to take my place on my own gift trip. The room fell silent. Finally, Dad spoke up. We thought you would understand. You always understand when Amber needs help. But what about when I need understanding? What about when I need support? You do not need support the way Amber does, Mom said. You are successful. You have your life figured out. And there it was. The assumption that had shaped my entire relationship with my family. Because I was successful, because I had worked hard and made something of myself, I no longer deserved their consideration. My needs, my feelings, my sacrifices did not matter, because I could handle it. I want you to cancel the trip, I said quietly. We cannot cancel it now, Amber said from the couch. Everything is booked and paid for. With my money. Money you were going to spend on the trip anyway, Dad pointed out. On a trip that included me. This is theft. It is not theft when family helps family, Mom said, but she would not meet my eyes. Then I guess I will have to let the bank decide what it is, I said, turning toward the door. You would not, Dad called after me. I turned back to look at my family, at my parents who had always favored my sister but never quite this blatantly, at Amber sitting smugly among her travel guides, completely convinced that she deserved my hard-earned vacation. Try me, I said, and walked out of the house. I called my bank the moment I got home, even though it was nearly midnight. The fraud department was available 24 hours, and I explained the situation to the representative who answered. So you are saying these charges were made without your authorization, she asked, completely without my authorization. Someone else used my card information to book travel for themselves. We will start a dispute process immediately and freeze the card. You should see the charges reversed within 5 to 7 business days pending our investigation. I provided all the documentation they needed. I had never given permission for Amber to use my card. I had never consented to the charges. The bank treated it exactly like what it was, unauthorized use of my credit card. Within 48 hours, Amber's tickets were canceled. The hotel reservations were invalidated when the payment method failed. Every single booking she had made with my stolen money was wiped out. My phone started ringing that afternoon. First Mom, then Dad, then Amber. I let every call go to voicemail. I changed all my banking information, set up new security questions, and made sure no one in my family could access my accounts again. For 2 weeks, I did not respond to any of their messages. I needed time to process what had happened, to understand how my own family could have treated me so callously. I threw myself into work, staying late every night, focusing on projects that actually appreciated my efforts. The messages grew increasingly desperate. Mom left tearful voicemails about how the trip was ruined and how devastated Amber was. Dad called to say I was being vindictive and hurting the family. Amber herself left angry messages about how I had embarrassed her and ruined her chance to see Europe. But nowhere in any of those messages was an apology. Nowhere was an acknowledgement that they had done something wrong. They were upset about the consequences of their actions, but they still believed they had been justified in taking my money and my trip. Finally, after 2 weeks of silence, I answered when Mom called. "Chloe, thank goodness," she said, her voice thick with tears. "We need to talk about this. The whole trip is ruined. Amber is so upset she can barely get out of bed." "The trip you stole from me is ruined," I asked calmly. "We did not steal anything. We just thought—" "You thought you could take my money and my vacation and give it to Amber without even asking me. You thought I would just accept being treated like a bank account instead of a daughter. That is not what happened. That is exactly what happened. And you know what, I still want to take you and Dad to Spain. The offer still stands. Just the 3 of us, like I originally planned." Silence on the other end of the line. "But what about Amber?" Mom asked finally. "What about her? She can plan her own trip with her own money when she gets a job." "She cannot afford a trip like that." "Then maybe she should have thought about that before she quit her job 8 months ago. Maybe she should think about it now and use it as motivation to find employment." "You are being cruel. I am being fair." "I offered to take my parents on a trip. That offer still stands. But I am done funding Amber's lifestyle." It took 3 weeks, but eventually my parents came to my apartment. Not to demand that I restore Amber's trip, but to apologize. "We were wrong," Dad said, sitting uncomfortably on my couch. "We have been treating you unfairly for years, and this trip situation made us realize it." Mom nodded, tears in her eyes. "We always thought you were so strong, so capable of handling anything, that we forgot you need support too. We forgot that your feelings matter just as much as Amber's." "We took advantage of your generosity," Dad continued. "We assumed that because you are successful, your sacrifices do not count as much. That was wrong." It was the first real apology I had ever gotten from them. Not an excuse, not a justification, but an actual acknowledgement of how they had treated me. "I still want to take you both on a trip," I said. "But we are going to Portugal instead of Spain. Fresh start." They agreed immediately, and this time there was no discussion of Amber joining us. No questions about whether she could come instead of me. Just gratitude for a daughter who was willing to forgive and try again. The trip to Portugal was everything I had hoped the Spain trip would be. We spent 10 days exploring Lisbon and Porto, eating incredible food, seeing beautiful architecture, and having meaningful conversations. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like my parents truly appreciated what I was doing for them. Dad talked about how proud he was of my career, how impressed he was that I had managed to save so much money while still living independently. Mom apologized repeatedly for taking my hard work for granted, for assuming that my success meant I did not need emotional support. "We raised you to be independent," she said one evening, as we sat in a cafe overlooking the Douro River. "But somewhere along the way we forgot that independence does not mean you should have to handle everything alone." Meanwhile, Amber was facing the consequences of her actions back home. Without the safety net of a European vacation to look forward to, and with my parents finally refusing to enable her behavior, she had no choice but to find a job. She started working at a local cafe, making minimum wage, and learning what it felt like to actually work for money. It was humbling for her, but necessary. For the first time in her adult life, she had to budget, had to save, had to appreciate the value of $1. She began to understand why I had been so hurt when she casually dismissed my hard-earned money as no big deal. When we got back from Portugal, Amber asked to meet with me for coffee. She looked different, older somehow, and definitely more tired. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I did not understand what I was asking of you, or how hard you work for your money. I thought because you make good money it was easy for you." "It has never been easy for me," I replied. "I work 60 hours a week. I live in a small apartment even though I could afford bigger. I save instead of spending because I want to be able to do things like take our parents on vacation." "I know that now," she said. "Working at the cafe has taught me what real work feels like. And I realized that when I took your trip, I was not just taking money. I was taking your time, your effort, your sacrifice." It was not a complete reconciliation, but it was a start. Our relationship needed time to heal, but for the first time I felt like Amber was beginning to understand the impact of her actions. The most important change was in my relationship with my parents. They stopped treating me like the responsible child who could handle anything, and started treating me like a person with feelings and needs. When Amber eventually found a better job and moved out of their house, they made sure to celebrate my achievements just as much as they had always celebrated her struggles. I learned something important during those months. Being successful does not mean you have to accept unfair treatment. Family love does not mean sacrificing your boundaries or allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to refuse to enable their irresponsible behavior. Setting boundaries with my family was one of the hardest things I ever did, but it was also one of the most necessary. I had spent years allowing my success to be used as a reason to treat me as less deserving of consideration and support. I had accepted the role of the strong one who could handle anything even when it meant handling unfair treatment. But no more. I learned to advocate for myself, to value my own efforts and sacrifices, to demand the respect I deserved. And surprisingly, once I started demanding better treatment, my family began to give it to me. The cafe job turned out to be good for Amber in ways none of us expected. She discovered she actually enjoyed customer service, and eventually worked her way up to assistant manager. She started dating one of her coworkers, moved into her own apartment, and began building a life based on her own efforts rather than our parents' support. "Thank you," she told me months later, "for not letting me continue being a spoiled brat. I needed that wake-up call even though I hated you for it at the time." My parents and I have traveled together several more times since Portugal. Each trip has been a celebration of our healthier relationship, a recognition that we are all adults who deserve respect and consideration. They no longer assume that my financial success means my emotional needs matter less. I have also learned to appreciate my own worth. I spent so many years trying to earn my parents' approval by being the responsible, successful daughter that I forgot I deserved love and respect simply for being their daughter. Success should enhance your relationships, not make you a target for exploitation. Now, when I look back at that whole situation, I realize it was not just about a trip to Spain. It was about learning to value myself enough to demand fair treatment. It was about teaching my family that love and support should flow both ways, that being capable does not mean being infinitely giving. The woman I am today is stronger, more confident, and more aware of my own worth. I still work hard, I still save money, and I still love doing nice things for my family. But I do it from a place of choice, rather than obligation, from a position of respect, rather than exploitation. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose something in order to gain respect. In my case, I had to be willing to lose a family trip in order to gain a family that truly valued me. And that trade-off was worth every difficult moment along the way. Have you ever found yourself being treated unfairly by family members because of your success? Have you had to set difficult boundaries with the people you love most? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences about family relationships and learning to value yourself. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to demand better treatment from the people who are supposed to love you most. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth is not determined by how much you are willing to sacrifice for others.